If you take the cells in a fertilized human egg and you watch them grow and develop really early on in that process, very subtle little indentations appear in the cell ball that begin to distinguish the head from the hindquarters. Distinction that's lost entirely on some people. Completely lost. But if you were to, at that point, if you were to take a single cell from the head and move it mechanically down to the hindquarters, you know what it would do? It would move back up. Because it knows what it is at a completely rudimentary level. We're not talking about having a 10th grade education here, a college education, postgraduate degrees. We're talking at the cellular level. It knows exactly what its major is. You know what I mean? It knows exactly what it's supposed to be doing. I think at some level, so do we. At a cellular level, I think so do we. And I think some of that pick and shovel work is about remembering that fact. Remembering that we know what we're supposed to be. There was a guy that I included in the Callings book, an artist who captured this idea to me beautifully. Because what he said was, he described this interaction that he had one day with his 7-year-old daughter, who came to him and asked him, "Daddy, what do you do at work?" And he explained to her that he worked at the college and his job was to teach people how to draw. And he said that she looked back at him incredulous and said, "Daddy, you mean they forget?" Imagine how that would seem to a 7-year-old. You mean they forget? So as you begin to remember the callings that are yours, one of the things that happens really quickly, I've noticed, is that you throw very opposing energies into your life. Immediately. You don't have to set out on the road for that to happen. Thinking about it will do the trick. I remember this this is one of the reasons we pulled this prank on this professor. Earlier in the semester, one of the things he did that proves this point was he stood up in the front of the room one day and he said, momentarily I'm going to pick somebody in the class to come up here on stage and do something that might be a little embarrassing to you. And so the ultimate adolescent nightmare is going off in a room full of people's heads. And he starts pacing up and down the aisles with his squeaky black shoes and his hands behind his back. And then he goes back to the front of the room and he says, "I had no intention of picking anybody, but I want you to report to me what your bodies just did." This is why we pulled a prank on this guy. He deserved it. He said, "I did this by way of introducing the subject of the day, which is the power of suggestion." So we talked about the sweaty palms and the deodorant that wasn't working anymore, and some people admitted to prayer. Right? But it's just thinking about it is going to set the glands going. Just thinking about it is going to throw opposing energies into your life. Yes and no. One party wants to say yes, one party wants to say no. One party wants to follow the calling and desperately, and the other part just as desperately wants to run. So you want to use this paradigm, you can use this one, head and heart. I often think of it this way. And you can count on your head to say things to you like, "Have you taken a look at your savings account lately? The thing's all skin and bones, and that's with a regular paycheck. You want to quit to become an artist? A freelance writer?" Right? And you can count on the head to the heart to say, "Yes, but where would the world be if all of its heroes followed the bottom line? Where would the world be if all of our heroes followed the bottom line?" So back and forth, every single person I interviewed talked about this back and forth, right? It's like two gladiators tied together for a fight to the finish. Courage joined at the hip with anxiety. And that's how people go out on the proverbial path. And that is the way it is. I heard this described once, that heroism and of course heroinism, can be redefined for the modern age as the ability to tolerate paradox. Heroism can be redefined as the ability to hold two contrary forces, ideas, impulses, energies, beliefs inside you at the same time and still retain the ability to function. This is a tough one. I know a woman who's a mediator, goes over to the Middle East, and you imagine sitting in a room with Arabs and Israelis, sitting in a room with 2,000-year-old grudges. You know how it is when you have a fight with your partner and it's a couple of hours go by? 2,000 years of people fighting who are essentially the same people. Who are essentially ethnically the same people. Right? And to be able to hold the energy of that creates tremendous resilience in humans and utterly mitigates against fascism, whether it's in the human psyche or in the world at large. I heard this once as a writer. The basis of every story ever written or told can be summed up in the phrase, two worlds collide. Two worlds collide. It's interesting. And besides, you know the writer J.R.R. Tolkien? He once said, "It doesn't do you any good to leave a dragon out of your calculations if you live near him." You've got to take the dragons into the calculations. So I used to be a reporter back in my 20s. And one of the papers that I worked for was the Cincinnati Enquirer. And one of my favorite stories that I did when I was at that paper was a story on the circus coming to town. Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus coming to Cincinnati. And in a fit of journalistic zeal, and therefore short-sightedness, I let the animal trainer of Ringling Brothers talk me into riding, he said, riding bareback on an elephant at the head of the Barnum and Bailey Circus parade through downtown Cincinnati at lunch hour when everybody I knew was out there having lunch. He said, "This will add color to your story." He neglected to tell me exactly what color. The only way to get up on the elephant was to use a ladder, and the only way to stay up there during the parade was to hang on to the elephant's ears, which had the most disagreeable habit of flapping a lot. Now we're talking elephant ear flaps. You know, this is not little kitty cat twitches. So the only way to stay up there during the parade was to remain extremely flappable. Otherwise I'd have been thrown. And that was a serious proposition. You know, concrete in front of everybody, 12, 15 feet. So there I am, and you have to picture now, I'm the first thing anybody sees in this parade. I'm wearing my business clothes because he sprung this idea on me at the last second. I'm hanging desperately onto this elephant's ears. I probably look like a kid learning how to ride a bicycle for the first time. I'm flying through space all by myself, and I've got a look on my face that's about one half exhilaration and one half terror. And that's what people saw. And this doesn't exactly capture the theme of the show, if you know what I mean. Ringling Brothers, the greatest show on earth. It probably did capture another one of P.T. Barnum's little themes, though. Sucker born every minute. Probably captured that one pretty good. In retrospect, I realized that experience on the elephant had a lot in common with the experience of encountering a calling. In that, I was caught by surprise and carried off by something a lot bigger than me. In that, it was terrifying and exhilarating all at the same time. There's that paradoxical equation again. And in that the elephant, frankly, couldn't have cared less.